Well, can you imagine terrorists and their families being paid to kill Americans? And critics say we pay for it. That is what they say the Palestinian Authority is doing by rewarding terrorist inmates and the families of terrorists who have been killed by Israeli police. And this week, the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee held a hearing to try and stop it. You know, the Palestinian Authority shells out more than $300 million a year, roughly the same amount American taxpayers give to the PA, for what they call martyr payments. Critics say it's simply a reward and bounty system for the terrorist killings. But the Palestinians say the money is needed to support what they consider combatants who have been fighting against Israeli occupation. Well, this Senate bill is named for this man. He is Taylor Force. It's called the Taylor Force Act, and it would cut off U.S. taxpayer money. Taylor was 28 years old. He went to West Point. He served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he was savagely stabbed to death last year while he was walking on the boardwalk in Tel Aviv with friends from Vanderbilt University. Turns out his killer was a Palestinian terrorist who also stabbed 11 other people, some of those who Taylor was with. And his family, authorities say, is being paid for the murder. Well, critics like Republican Senator Rand Paul say the payments are just horribly offensive.
People are worried, oh gosh, if we cut any of their money, they'll be mad. You know, people sense weakness, and, you know, cut it all. Cut every last penny of it. If you want to restart some of it, restart it when they change their behavior.
Well, will the bill pass? James Holman joins us. He is national political correspondent for The Washington Post. James, we've been reporting on the story continually because it is so heartbreaking and, in a way, just so astounding that potentially American taxpayer money can go to these payments. What do you think the Senate will do in light of the hearing they held this week?
Yeah, Eric, good to be with you. And negotiations are ongoing in the Senate. There is bipartisan broad consensus for the spirit of the bill, that the U.S. should not be supporting these kinds of martyr payments. But right now, only one Democratic senator has signed on, the ranking Democrat on the Foreign Relations Committee, which had the hearing, holding out for kind of a targeting of the bill to make it more specific.
Who's supporting? Is that
the one senator who's on board right now on the Democratic side is Joe Manchin from West Virginia.
And who was against it that you just mentioned, the chairman?
So Ben Cardin, the senator from Maryland, he is of the mind that generally this is a good idea, but the U.S. can't sort of take an axe and cut off all the funding for the Palestinians, that there are some hospitals that wouldn't be able to stay open that do important humanitarian work in East Jerusalem and the West Bank, that if this Taylor Force Act passed, those hospitals may have to close down, and they're saving lives.
So do you think they'll
target the
this?
funding.
Do you think they will be able to target the funding, you know, to basically the families? And if the Palestinian Authority wants to do this, they got to come up with their own dough.
Well, that's part of the ongoing debate, and there are a couple of Republicans, including the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Corker, who wants to target it a little bit, who believes that the money can be targeted. There's also some joint security efforts between the United States and the Palestinian Authority that they don't want to compromise by just chopping off all the funding. The other big holdup is in the current draft of the legislation, there's no waiver so that the president could decide to give the money to the Palestinians anyway. What happens when you give a waiver is we see there's, you know, the Congress passed a law saying that the U.S. needed to move the Israeli embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and every single year the president uses the waiver, no matter who it is.
So they could pass the Taylor Force Act, and the president could use the waiver. I mean, at least
right
it would
now
be a
there's
message.
no waiver, right?
Okay.
But exactly. So part of it is the negotiation is let's put the waiver in to at least send the message, and then the president could make it more targeted. But right now, the current draft, there is no waiver, so it would be sort of no way for the administration to get out of it.
And how about those who would say, you know, if they did do this, it would undermine the Palestinian Authority? I mean, Mahmoud Abbas has said no way, he is not going to cut these payments. And some would say, you know, that it's a social system that the Palestinians rely on.
Well, yeah, Eric, you're right, and that is one of the arguments, is that there could be unintended consequences here. By going and chopping off all this funding, the Palestinian Authority could fall apart, and that something far more radical and sinister and dangerous to Israel and the United States could take its place. You know, that kind of gets in the weeds, but as we know, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is very complex. There are no easy answers.
That could be an unintended consequence, say some. Let me show you Stuart Force. He is Taylor's father, who certainly supports the bill. We talked to him here at Fox News just a couple of months ago.
Right now, we're doing what we can, speaking with Fox, speaking with people from the local paper, sending out emails to friends, telling them to learn about the situation and try to contact their representatives, say, hey, vote for the Taylor Force Act. It does good things, and I think it'll be a good start if it passes. We expect it to.
It's heartbreaking. It's inspiring. Do you expect that it will eventually pass and go to the president's desk?
Yeah, it really is heartbreaking. It's just awful. Taylor, by all accounts, was a great guy. I think that people want to get to yes here. People want to find some compromises, and it can get bipartisan support with those compromises that I talked about. Bob Corker, the Republican chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, Republican senator from Tennessee, says that he hopes it can pass by the end of the summer. There's a lot on the Senate's plate right now, as you've been talking about this hour. But I think there's a desire to get to yes. So far, the Trump administration has not taken a formal position on this bill. I think the president offering support could go a long way.
All right, John Homan, they want to get to yes. We'll see if they do. Thank you for joining us. John Homan of The Washington Post. And of course, our thoughts to Taylor's family. We will continue to report on this effort.